Down south in North Carolina, Sheriff Panko is staked out in the yard, waiting for a clear sighting of the moonshine wagons so that his deputies can swoop in. They are just waiting for the word go. The J-50 comes into the yard for reasons unknown to God and man. He grabs a cut of freight cars and prepares to make off with them. The J-50 realizes he is about to steal Sheriff Panko and puts him back. Scotsman has well exceeded his limits on the special water. The crazy county, not helping, says it is not wise to say goodbye to the hind end of a donkey. Scotsman moves to the coaling tower for a little quiet. The sheriff has eyes on the wagons and puts his deputies on alert. Gadwall comes into town, having outrun the Standard Four. The Standard Four follows Gadwall into Spencer, arriving at the exact same moment the gondola of Lyon's wagons free rolls into the junction. The Standard Four wants a vacation. Sheriff Panko, surprised by the carnage happening before him, blurts out, "Whoa!" Deputy says, "There's the word, let's go, boys," and speeds off. The Dash 8s follow. Deputy speeds ahead and plows into the wreck. The Dash 8s follow Deputy as they were instructed. Princess Arthur is suddenly glad that ridership fell off after the introduction of the APTE. No serious injuries. No passengers either. The Yard Goat and the Plymouth look on, knowing that the crane is about to get a big workout. Although intoxicated, Scotsman knows exactly what to do in this emergency situation: save the liquor. Lyon comes into town, takes a look at the mess, and asks what on earth everybody did to her wagons. The Black Five has arrived back outside and takes a moment to sit on a bench and think back on her travels. Mallard volunteers to jump in with Gadwall and keep passenger service going despite the little mishap. The J-50 rolls up to the Ivat Mogul and asks for a lesson on how to handle the guns safely. The Ivat Mogul figures things can't get much more chaotic than they already are and agrees to do it. Plus, it'll get her away from this madness for a little while. The Ivat tells the J-50 to couple up to the guns slowly. The Ivat Mogul waits for the J-50 to come back down for a landing before continuing the lesson. The Black Five is back in the building, but pauses to watch a great new video series she found. South in North Carolina, an eccentric group of English steam engines have settled. Flying Scotsman passes through Statesville, but encounters someone else coming the other way. The Dean Goods thought she heard something ahead of her. Scotsman is just glad she stopped, as he did not feel like being a literal flying Scotsman today. Scotsman backs up and takes the siding so the Dean Goods can pass. With the track clear, Scotsman gets underway. Flying Scotsman decides to try for the magical land of West Virginia and ducks onto the Clinchfield Railroad. Steve Irvan rolls into Asheville, finding the angry garden shed and his kitty. Steve Irvan reminds the children that you must respect the critters you handle, and attempts to handle the kitty. It does not go to plan. Flying Scotsman arrives in West Virginia and passes several locals, all of whom know moonshine when they smell it. Scotsman enters a yard and finds an engine facility. He pulls in and meets an old Norfolk and Western engine. The N&W engine asks Scotsman what he's doing there. Scotsman has consumed so much moonshine that he is not sure of anything other than the fact that the wagons are empty. The locals request that Scotsman let them know when the tank is full again. The N&W engine asks if Scotsman is having trouble with the law. Scotsman says the trouble is not so much with the law, just the police. The N&W engine says you can't fight the law or the police forever. You're going to have to face them sooner or later. Scotsman realizes the N&W engine is right. He must fight Sheriff Panko and should start building up muscle to do so right now. Flying Scotsman returns to the engine facility, quite content that he is strong enough to fight the sheriff. The N&W engine points out that steam locomotives do not build muscle as they work. That's a human thing. Steam locomotives just wear out. Scotsman wishes that someone had told him that sooner. The chassis system switch engine says, "That trolley's dog is in our yard again." The little N&W engine says that sometimes we just have to have a new start in life. To get on the right... The N&W engine has to go because the other chassis system diesel is on fire again. Flying Scotsman realizes the N&W engine is right. If he wants to put all the moonshine troubles behind him, he needs to travel south and start a new life in Mexico. Meanwhile, in Spencer, the main lines are almost open again. The Standard 4 asks the L1 tank engine, who has the crane, where his tender went. The L1 says, "One thing at a time, please." Sheriff Panko, having gotten his deputies back on track, literally, starts to make a plan for how to deal with the moonshine. or at least figure out who to make out extradition papers for. Flying Scotsman comes off the Clinchfield Railroad interchange. He figures that if he can sneak through Salisbury and get through to Atlanta, the rest of the trip to Mexico should not be a problem. Flying Scotsman rounds the Y at Spencer Junction and finds himself facing all the local law enforcement at once. Scotsman reverses fast and tries to head back up the mountain. Dippity and the deputies are about to give chase, but the sheriff hears something coming. Gadwall races through the yard with a northbound train heading right for Scotsman. Scotsman has had closer calls than that, but he can't remember when. Scotsman is not sure how he will get back on a southbound course, but he'll figure it out. In Statesville, Flying Scotsman finds himself stuck behind the Dean goods on a coal train. Scotsman desperately requests the right-of-way. The Dean goods takes the siding at Clinch Cross and Scotsman overtakes. Scotsman rockets through Ye Old Fortress and up the loops. Partway up, Scotsman encounters some old friends. The tram engine attempts to explain something to Scotsman, but Scotsman is too busy saying, "Here, kitty, 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 pss, 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 pss." The tram engine interrupts and says, "First off, Mr. Scotsman, that is a Y6, not a kitty kitty. Secondly, those wagons belong to me. Well played, Mr. Scotsman. Well played. But the game is over now. Hand over the wagons." Scotsman, still full of the liquid courage of special water, says, "You want them? Go fetch, kitty kitty." The Dean Goods is given instructions to wait in the Ye Old Fortress sidings due to unusual activity on the loops. The Dean Goods hears something approaching. The Ivet tells the J50 he's ready to fire. The Ivet says, "Pull the trigger gently." The J50 says, "Happy New Year!" Flying Scotsman, now transitioning from being fueled by liquid courage to being plain hung over, parks on the turntable lead. The Ivet Mogul asks if the wagons getting blown up means things can settle down around here now. Sheriff Panko approaches the Dash-8s in the yard and holds up his end of the bargain with them. Because they assisted with solving the moonshine problem, all charges are dropped. They are free to go. The Dash-8s roll back into the yard. Mallard and Gadwall are informed they are getting their old jobs back. The A4s are ecstatic, but are then told they start at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. Mallard and Gadwall failed to consider that getting their old jobs back meant going back to work. Lion couples to her coal wagons and heads up the mountain with them, just for old time's sake. The Dash 8s have found the Jack Daniels boxcar, and figure one more wouldn't hurt. Sheriff Panko had a feeling they wouldn't last long. The tram engine and Big Kitty Kitty have gathered up the remains of the special water wagons and are taking them home. The K4 rolls up to the roundhouse and finds his son in a terribly hungover state. The K4 knows this calls for a bit more than just an intervention. The Black Five rolls up to the roundhouse, calm as can be, and asks if she's missed anything. St. Lawrence School says, "My work is done here," and heads north. The K4 also departs northbound, with Flying Scotsman in tow for a father-son rehabilitation trip to Pennsylvania. The Standard 4 again asks the L1 where his tender went. The L1 says it'll turn up eventually. Everybody is getting along just fine on the trolley line. The Yard Goat says, "Just tell me it's over. Please tell me this means it's over." As the sun sets, everyone in the roundhouse settles in for another night down south in North Carolina.
The choo-choo train, say ah.
Just make sure no one walks off with this thing.
He didn't specify who.
I'm glad we both had the same idea of...
Is this for that one video?
5600 is following another stick bus around. Gord suspects that the tank engine is not contributing according to her abilities. Chadson has a funny feeling that there is something behind him again.